Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 42. We're in season 2 of Be With Me. And I guarantee you that what we're going to talk about today has never been talked about before in a podcast, and that is slaughter. Title of today is Considering Slaughter. The reason that we're going to talk about it is because it's in the Bible, and I'll read you the passage. It's from Luke 19, verse 27. We're in the parable of the 10 minas, and a nobleman goes into a far country to receive a kingdom and then come back. And the people that are there, the citizens, say they hate him, and they send a delegation after this king, saying, "We do not want this man to reign over us." And then at the end of the story, here's the slaughter part, verse 27. After those who have had the minas invested and some didn't invest and were punished for it, he says, "But as for these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me." And this has been rattling around in my head for a couple of days now, because I don't really like that there's slaughter at the end of this story. It kind of gives you a little throw up in your mouth that people are slaughtered, even though they are certainly and personally declared as enemies of God. They said so themselves. And maybe the thought, my compassionate thought being, is that every one of those people is someone's father or son or mother or daughter. But then if you blow that out a little bit further, the enemies of God are always somebody's mother. They all have a mother. They all have a son. They all have a relative. So just being a relative of someone doesn't exclude you from being an enemy of God. All right, second thing, point number 2 is this concept of wrath and me being an imperfect human being and not understanding it fully. Maybe I don't get my arms all the way around it. So there's a principle here about what do you do when you don't fully understand something in the Bible. So you cross-reference it, you pray for wisdom, you pray for humility, you might ask others, you might ask experts in commentaries. And then, so here's a more even disturbing thought. What if it's just plain? What if the enemies of God, and this is a parable, so it's not a total prediction, but it's not an isolated point in Scripture. But what if it's a plain thing in Scripture and I just don't like it? So that may be that this is just plain, is that in the end, the enemies of God are going to be slaughtered. And I just don't like it. I'm just more uncomfortable with it. So there's that. Then the third thing about this here is, let's talk about justice. So these people were definitely in the wrong. They hated this reign. They hated the person. They made a committee. They made it public. They rebelled against his person, his reign, his authority, his lordship, and said verbally, "We do not want this man to reign over us." So they have this wrong view, and the other guy who misinvests his minas, he has this wrong view of God and sort of quotes God and does it wrongly. And so he probably is also included in this slaughter. So in heaven, there is going to be justice. God is going to punish perfectly. He's going to reward perfectly. There's nobody in heaven that's going to say, "Oh, that person didn't get what they deserved," except for the people that get the blessings of salvation. So it's a little bit offensive that the bad guys are slaughtered, but it's actually just. So here's a final spiritual thought: is that how does God fix this problem? So you got to turn to Isaiah 53, and Isaiah 53 is a wonderfully horrible prophecy about Jesus. A man, I'll just give you some of the highlights. Man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, crushed for our iniquities. By his stripes we are healed. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, he opened not his mouth. And then here's the one that caught my my heart, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, like a sheep before its shearers is silent. So get this, God is fixing slaughter, fixing the punishment of slaughter, giving people a way out, giving them an escape. By what? By slaughter, by its slaughter of his son. So we have the love of the king. And so how do we get that that slaughter, get out of jail free card? Well, it's by loving the king. It's by embracing the kingdom and receiving the slaughter. And this is a father, in a sense, allowing or slaughtering his son as payment for the sin of the world, so that we don't have to get slaughtered. So he's offering the most, in a sense, the hardest thing, the most vile thing, the most violent thing, to slaughter your own child in a certain sense. Why? So that we can be saved. How do we do it? Love the king, embrace his kingdom, embrace his authority. So in conclusion, in considering slaughter, I am uncomfortable with it. And I probably don't understand it all the way, because I'm just a little teeny person, and aren't we all? But God understands it. There will be justice. There will be perfect justice. There will be some punishment for rejecting kings and kingdoms and rejecting the reign and authority of the Lord. And I almost don't even like even that Jesus was slaughtered for this either. That even makes me a little uncomfortable. But isn't that the way of God? So let's do what we can. What is that? Love the king, embrace the kingdom, receive the slaughter of this rescue, and get our get out of jail free card. So in considering slaughter today, it's the Lord's slaughter that I ended up with. Thanks for listening. Thanks for walking this walk with me.